Hi, I'm Brad Elliott, Advertising Manager at the Pima Air and Space Museum. Today marks the 75th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. VE Day celebrates the official surrender of Nazi Germany in World War II. And on behalf of everyone here at the museum, I'd like to honor those who served in the war and help preserve the memory of their incredible sacrifice. This video takes a tour of one of our 3 hangars dedicated to World War II and highlights an aircraft from each of the big 3, Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union. Enjoy. The Douglas C-47 Skytrain is arguably the most successful aircraft to come out of World War II. It was designed in 1935 as the DC commercial airliner. The aircraft was so far ahead of its competitors that over 400 had been built by 1940, when the U.S. Army Air Forces expressed an interest in a militarized cargo and troop transport version. The main modifications from the DC-3 are a large cargo door on the left side of the aircraft and a strengthened floor. Some sources say that General Dwight Eisenhower hailed it as one of the 4 tools of victory that won World War II, alongside the Jeep, bazooka, and atomic bomb. On loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force, this is the second C-47 built, and the oldest in existence. Around 10,000 Skytrains were produced for all branches of the American military and for export. One of the C-47's more famous uses was to deliver paratroopers to the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, but it was used in every theater of the war. The Hawker Hurricane was the first British fighter to have both a single wing and retractable landing gear. The Mark I version would bear the brunt of the Battle of Britain, but more to come on that shortly. The majority of this Hurricane came from a Canadian-built aircraft that crashed in Lake St. John's, Quebec in 1944. But parts from at least 5 Hurricanes went into its construction, which gave us the freedom to restore this aircraft and tell the story of L.C. Wade, the most successful American ace of World War II to serve entirely with a foreign air force. Completed and displayed in January of 2020, this new paint scheme represents Hurricane number BG-974 of the Royal Air Force No. 33 Squadron in North Africa. Wade shot down 2 enemy aircraft in this plane on May 28, 1942. Wade learned to fly right here in Tucson, Arizona before volunteering to join the Royal Air Force. It's kind of like Ben Affleck in the movie Pearl Harbor, but legitimately awesome. Wade was assigned to the North African and Mediterranean theaters in 1941. His first aerial victories were on his 25th birthday of that year. By late 1942, already an ace, this young man was shot down over enemy territory. Try to imagine walking 25 miles while evading the enemy to get back to your friendly territory. While he was on leave in the United States, Wade turned down a commission and a promotion in order to keep flying alongside the men in North Africa. In May of 1943, he was moved to Malta to support the upcoming invasions of Sicily and Italy. It was here that his total aerial victories climbed to 23. Unfortunately, Wade died at the age of 27 in a Spitfire accident, but it's an honor to tell his story and keep his memory alive. Before the Battle of Britain, Holland, Belgium, Norway, and France had already fallen. The British handed the Germans their first major setback. The resilience of the Royal Air Force turned the tide of the war. The Hawker Hurricane and Supermarine Spitfire were the aircraft that the Royal Air Force used to defend their homeland. The Spitfire boasted a better win-loss ratio and was hailed for its performance. The Hurricane was larger and slower, but several factors made it the true workhorse of the Battle of Britain. It had a wood frame versus the all-metal Spitfire. This made it easier to build and repair, keeping more of them in the skies. The Spitfire could climb higher and turn faster because of the wing design, so one of the tactics was for Spitfires to go after the German fighters like the Bf-109, while the Hurricanes attacked the bombers like the Do-17 and the He-111. The Hurricane was responsible for more downed aircraft than any other air or ground defense combined in the Battle of Britain. This Allied victory forced Germany to shift its focus to Russia. Known as Operation Barbarossa, the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union began in the summer of 1941. Initially, the Eastern Front crumbled. Nazi soldiers were covering ground fast. Within months, the siege of Leningrad had begun. But the resilience of the Red Army had been underestimated. The front was over 1,000 miles, and in some places, the Nazis outran their supply lines. The siege of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, would last almost 900 days and become one of the most tragic blockades in all of history. When it was finally broken on January 27, 1944, our IL-2 was on scene providing air support. It was shot down the following day while attacking German troops. The pilot landed the damaged aircraft on a frozen lake about 70 miles south of Leningrad. Both pilots and gunners survived and successfully returned to their unit a week later. Once the lake thawed out in the spring, the aircraft sank and was hidden there for the next 48 years. It was recovered in 1992, brought to the States, and eventually donated to the Pima Air and Space Museum. The IL-2 is the most produced military aircraft of all time, with over 36,000 built. It's shown here with the Cessna 172 and the Boeing 737, the most produced civil and commercial aircraft of all time. It's an impossible lineup until the completion of the Pima IL-2 restoration project in February of 2020. The cockpit is enforced with steel rather than aluminum to protect the engine and the pilot, while the tail and wings are made of wood. The first version of the Shturmovik was vulnerable from behind, so a rear gunner was added. While effective, the gunner was exposed and this position was highly dangerous. The aircraft itself suffered heavy losses as well. Nearly a third of them were shot down during the war and the rest scrapped. Very few examples survive to this day, but this often overlooked aircraft did as much as any, if not more, to achieve victory in Europe.